Good evening. Welcome to another edition of Mi Gente on Air. I want to invite everybody to come on into the room here on social media, Facebook, and add your questions or your comments to the show. It always makes it a little bit more interesting. And I just want to thank everybody who tunes in each week, those that are frequent Mi Gente on Air guests or those that are just joining us for the very first time. I have Jonathan Webb, who's going to be joining us. He's with the Castle Museum. He's the president CEO. And we're going to talk about Dia de los Muertos and an exciting exhibit that they have at the castle now. So stay in the room, don't go anywhere, and join us on Mi Gente on Air.
Welcome to Mi Gente on Air on 100.5 and 790 News Radio WSGW and online WSGW.com. Now, here is your host, Larry Rodarte.
Bienvenidos and good evening and welcome to Mi Gente on Air, where we celebrate Latino culture, concerns, and contributions. I am your host, Larry Rodarte, and today we have a great show celebrating Latino culture at one of the great institutions in the Great Lakes Bay region, the Castle Museum, right in downtown Saginaw. That beautiful, unique building that houses Saginaw history and puts on some great exhibits telling our stories. Right now, until the end of August, they have an exhibit celebrating Dia de los Muertos, the annual tradition celebrated throughout Mexico and Latin American countries. The exhibit is on loan from the Chicago Field Museum and is entitled A Celebration of Souls, Fiesta de las Almas, and it's a great educational opportunity and sharing of Latino culture. And today I have the president CEO of the Castle Museum of Saginaw County, Mr. Jonathan Webb. Let's talk Dia de los Muertos. Welcome to Mi Gente on Air. Jonathan, how are you?
Doing great, Larry. Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here and honored to share the studio with you tonight. And I'm really looking forward to a great discussion with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited about having Jonathan here tonight. I call you Jonathan. It's just wonderful, though, that as a board member of the Saginaw County Historical Society, which is houses the Castle Museum there in downtown Saginaw, that we have these exhibits that are really celebrating culture, not just Hispanic culture, but the different cultures that we have in our community. And this particular exhibit on loan from the Chicago Field Museum is on Dia de los Muertos. And that's really something because we've come a long way. And I want you to explain to my listeners a little bit, just first of all, tell me who exactly you are, Jonathan Webb, and your little bit about your background, and then tell us how this exhibit came to Saginaw.
Sure. Well, thank you again, Larry, for having me on. I served on the board here for several years before accepting the position as the president and CEO. For many years, I was the director at the Frankenmuth Historical Association. I've been a Saginaw County resident since the mid-90s. Always had a love for history, got involved in the museum world, and was fortunate enough to end up here at this incredible museum that we have right here in the middle of the city of Saginaw, in the middle of Saginaw County, the Castle Museum of Saginaw County History. And, I want to just point something out. I love the way you started the show by inviting everyone into the room. And that's just a fantastic way, honestly, to say welcome. And I really appreciate that. And I just think that that's kind of the same atmosphere that we're trying to create at the museum. One of the things that we talked about when I first took this position with the staff and the board members that were there, and you included, Larry, you've been on the board since I've been on the board, and also since I've been the president. And that was just that we have to do a better job of making sure that we're more representative of our community and that we tell all the stories of our community. And that involves, reaching out to things that maybe all of us weren't either familiar with or comfortable with or whatever, but kind of expanding those horizons a little bit and making sure that we were inclusive to all of the members of our audience here in Saginaw County.
Well, I think that's part of what, my position on the board was when I initially came on back in 2003, believe it or not. And it's part of what this show, Mi Gente on Air, is about bringing that awareness of the Hispanic Latino culture that we have here in the Great Lakes Bay region. So I think it all goes hand in hand. And I'm so excited about this exhibit, of course, because of my involvement with the Castle Museum, but I just love anything to do, with culture and in the history that many of our people have played, in their contributions. So, I want to mention and talk a little bit more about the uniqueness of the Saginaw Castle Museum itself and the presentation of the building. Because you know what, I was just over there today, and one of the things I want to bring up is the fact that they no longer have the pine trees in the front,
Correct.
and it just looks so much better, so
Yeah.
much cleaner. And I
Yeah.
thought, when we talked about it, let's cut down those trees. I'm like, why do they want to cut down those beautiful pine trees? Because they were beautiful, but it actually makes the uniqueness of the castle even more presentable. So let's talk a little bit about the castle itself.
Sure. Well, we consider the castle building itself to be our probably most significant artifact in our collection. It's a one of a kind building originally constructed in 1898 that served many years as the Saginaw Federal Post Office here in Saginaw. And it's unique architecturally. Like I said, it's a one of a kind building, and its place as I would say a cultural icon in Saginaw is huge.
Definitely.
And the fact that this building was nearly torn down on two different occasions is incredible. And can you imagine what a loss that would have been to this community to lose that building? But thankfully, the residents of Saginaw in Saginaw County rose up and protested and said, we've got to keep this. And to their credit, they were able to do it. And that happened at first in the 30s and again in the 70s. And so in the 1930s, Saginaw had outgrown the post office. So they were like, well, let's tear it down and we'll build a larger one. But the compromise was reached that rather than tear that down and replace it, they would actually add on to it and expand it. And that's what you see now when you come to the Castle Museum, is that renovation that was done in 1937 or finished in 1937.
Yeah, and it's just such a beautiful building. I have traveled through Europe, and I've seen some beautiful, gorgeous buildings, and the castle's right up there
Yeah.
with so many of the buildings. I mean, just the uniqueness of it. And I don't know of any other museum that actually is housed in a castle, right?
Right. And I guess the castle became the nickname. It actually was known as the Castle Station when it was part of the Postal Service still. But yeah, and it housed all different kinds of other federal offices, including military, where you could go to enlist in the military. Federal Bureau of Investigation was there. Just a lot of interesting things that have happened in that building. And so we're thankful that we're able to be the caretakers of that building today.
Yes. And so, I'm here to promote the Dia de los Muertos exhibit.
Sure.
But I also want to tell my listeners and the audience out there that if you haven't been to the Castle Museum of Saginaw County, you have to go there. It's such a gem in our whole community, and there are some beautiful exhibits that are displayed, some that are permanent, some we have the sports museum as well there. So if you haven't taken your children, I mean, even to go down to the basement and see what they have done with the foundry, General Motors, and those that exhibit, I mean, it's just really amazing, But we're here today to talk about Dia de los Muertos. So I want to know, how did that exhibit from the Chicago Field Museum come under the radar of the board or you, Jonathan, to bring it to Saginaw?
Sure. Well, I think the foundation for that was laid back when we hosted that Smithsonian exhibit, which you were also involved in, Larry. It was called Play Ball from the Barrios to the Big Leagues, and just talked about the importance of the game of baseball to Latino culture, and conversely, Latino culture's influence on the game of baseball. I think just working with you, and then you introduced me to a lot of members of the Latino community here in Saginaw that also contributed to that exhibit, plus those incredible people we work with at the Smithsonian. All those things, I think, kind of picked a whole new interest in my brain about, I wanted to learn more about Latino culture. And then I was somewhat familiar with Dia de los Muertos, but not as much as I am now. And we're constantly on the lookout for quality traveling exhibits that we can bring in here and share with our audience. And we saw that this was available from the Field Museum in Chicago, which is obviously a hugely reputable museum. And we called and asked some inquiries about it and checked on the availability of it. Obviously, we would have loved to have had it on November 1st and 2nd, but that wasn't available. And we went with the dates that were as close as possible that we could get to those dates. And we'll talk about that a little bit more, why those dates are significant.
Yes.
But and those, again, just kind of the same experience that I had with the people at the Smithsonian, working with these people at the Field Museum in Chicago. They were more than willing to accommodate us with getting the exhibit here, helping us to get it here, moving it on to the next place, which is actually on the west side of the state of Michigan, is the next stop. And just every step of the way, they've been extremely helpful. And I really think people will be pleased when they get an opportunity to see the gorgeous photographs and text that make up this exhibit.
Yeah, I think it's really exciting, to work with other institutions and museums, the Smithsonian, of course, and it makes it more interesting rather than just have stagnant exhibits that are just there housed in here at the Castle Museum. They're revolving, they're moving, and they're changing, and so I think it's much more exciting. And I want to ask, what is really in your eyes the significance of this exhibit? Because I want to give my perspective on Dia de
Sure.
los Muertos, but I want to hear from you as the president and CEO as well.
Sure. Well, again, I think it's really, really important that our visitors come in, and regardless of what their ethnic heritage or their skin color, that they have an opportunity to experience something that they didn't know before they got there. And this is a wonderful example of that. And I think perhaps people have become a little bit more exposed to this particular holiday because of the Disney movie and things like that, Coco. And so I think it was the right time also, because there was maybe some interest, but I don't know that people really knew what the real thing looked like. And so this was an opportunity to share some beautiful photographs and some information with our audience about something that I think they are aware of now, but didn't have a lot of knowledge on. And then when there's an opportunity to bring in a local component, we always try to do that. And I absolutely love what we've done for our local component for this exhibit as well. And you were involved with that. So.
Yeah. It was really amazing to me because in the midst of Cinco de Mayo, in the preparation of Cinco de Mayo, and I was extremely busy. All of a sudden, this came, and and you were sending me emails, and
Right.
we were talking about this, and I'm like, oh wow, this is wonderful, and to prepare for it though, I was thinking, how, because they asked me to do a local component to it, and I said, okay, well, what can I do? So I kind of had to put on my thinking cap. And it was just so easy because the Unión Cívica Mexicana, we put on an annual Dia de los Muertos brunch, well, before the pandemic. And we invite local families to come, and they set up ofrendas throughout our hall there on Wadsworth. And, we include the celebration of food, which is a huge aspect of Dia de los Muertos, because it's the celebration of souls, those that have passed on. And one of the things I want to make sure that we mention about Dia de los Muertos is, even though the translation of it means Day of the Dead, it's actually not celebrating death. It's celebrating life of the individual that has passed on. And a lot of times you'll see the calavera faces, which is the skeletal faces that they dress up in costume. And what that is basically they're saying, that they're mocking death. They're saying, although we die in from this life here on earth, we go into our eternal heaven, our eternal life, and death cannot defeat us. And so that's kind of,
And
an explanation of that. And if you
sure.
want to add, go ahead, add with
Well,
something.
and I think even further, it's also, I think, in the same vein that you're talking about, it's also saying that yes, that person is no longer with us physically, but they live within me, right?
Yes.
Those relatives that put those ofrendas together, and that's what you see. the emotion that's involved in constructing these, and the personal thought and time and reflection, and it's just so personal
Yeah.
and beautiful. They're
Yeah.
they're wonderful.
And see, the Dia de los Muertos is celebrated, as you mentioned before, later in November, early November, and it coincides with All Souls Day and All Saints Day within the Catholic faith. And what that was, the Spanish conquistadors back in the day, they came over to Mexico and they brought that Catholicism, that faith, and they mixed it with the Aztecs and the Mayans who were celebrating Dia de los Muertos the way they did, and they kind of combined the two, and that's what we have today as descendants of the mestizos of the Aztec Mayans and the Spaniards, the mixture. And so it goes way back. It goes way back. But we have an opportunity to educate so many individuals and bring that awareness, because I have seen sometimes where Dia de los Muertos, they kind of coincided with Halloween,
Right.
the American, tradition of Halloween. And it has nothing to do with scariness or trying to scare somebody by having those calavera, those skeletal faces. It has a whole different meaning. And it really, I know that, when I lost my mother 20 years ago, it was really difficult, of course, but I think that, building an ofrenda in her honor and putting certain foods that she liked and, other paraphernalia that reminded me of her, it was a welcoming, and a celebration of her spirit and soul, when she passed. So we do that, and I know that, like, my mother-in-law, she used to put beautiful ofrendas out for her. She was from Mexico,
Mhm.
born and raised, and then came to America. And, she had beautiful, elaborate ofrendas with all her loved ones, and that was her way of having that connection to back home, and it was beautiful. But the celebration of souls, Day of the Dead in southern Mexico, focuses on the lives of villagers and how they prepare century-old recipes, and they scatter, marigolds to guide the dead home. Let's
Mhm.
talk about that. What have they given you in terms of information for this exhibit?
Well, there a lot of it is explained in the interpretive text that goes along with it, and I really think, again, this is kind of I think it's a rather emotional journey that we want people to take, and so I would like for folks to come down and explore it themselves and just get an idea. And if I could actually turn the tables a little bit here, Larry, and become the guy asking the questions of you. Um, when you obviously volunteered to build one of the two ofrendas that we have constructed as part of our local component, and then you asked someone else to build one. Can you just tell me about that story and what happened that day when she came to the museum?
Well, what Jonathan's referring to is Ana Sanchez, who is a member of our community. She participated along with her cousin Gloria Munoz for the Dia de los Muertos ofrendas at the Unión Cívica Mexicana's brunch. And they made a beautiful, I think we have a picture of that, Jonathan, a beautiful ofrenda that she won. They won first place. I think it was in 2018 or 2019. Um, and she unfortunately lost Gloria, her cousin, to COVID in 2021, I believe, in January. And Gloria was just such a big part of our community, as many of our Latinos out there know, that she sang at St. Anthony's Church for many years. And, she just was really a big part of the community. And so when I asked Anna, I said, Anna, you guys did such a beautiful exhibit on the ofrenda at the Union Civica. Could you do one, as the Castle Museum's asking if we can and share part of our culture? And she said, absolutely, and she came over and she brought all kinds of bags and all kinds of
Yep.
paraphernalia to build an ofrenda. And she started telling the story to the Castle Museum staff and to Jonathan, and, got really emotional because obviously she lost her cousin, who was a big part of her life, and actually asked her to build this ofrenda at the Union Civica. So now here Gloria, or Anna, was actually building it for Gloria, and it's beautiful. And I really want to invite everybody to come see that, because you'll recognize many of the Sanchez family, which Gloria is a part of, and it's just, I get emotional myself just talking
Me
about it.
too. And
because-
I mean, when I was thinking about it, and that's kind of where I was going with that. I think everybody there that day was in tears.
yeah, yeah,
And then we asked her to come back because we wanted to give her a chance to kind of recover a little bit, and for us to recover a little bit. And we conducted a little bit more of a formal interview, and there were some more tears there. But it was a great story, and then we were able to kind of tell that story on our social media channels and things like that as part of the lead up to this exhibit. And that's the kind of thing, that's the kind of story that we want to tell.
yeah.
That's the kind of story we want to tell.
Yeah, and Gloria Munoz, she was Gloria Espinosa, and then married, and she became Munoz. But she just loved our culture, and when she would come, she would wear the Mexican dress, the flowers, and you didn't find that picture in there. Well, she was very instrumental musically, but also culturally to the community, and she worked with kids. And I can remember way back in the day being on the hay rides at St. Anthony's. I think I was a teen, and Gloria was maybe 5 years older than me, but she really made it a point to celebrate our culture and our traditions. And whether it was, praying the rosary or singing to Our Lady of Guadalupe at St. Joe's Church, or just playing the piano, for the Sunday masses during Sunday, services, Gloria was a big part of the community. So I'm really happy to see that. And one of the things I want to mention is her and Anna's grandfather was very instrumental in the Unión Cívica Mexicana, and was really a big part of when Jimmy Carter came to Saginaw to the Unión Cívica as president. So, I mean, it's really been a lot of history there. And like I said, unfortunately, we lost Gloria to COVID. But the traditions I know are carried on with her children and her grandchildren, and they participate in the Cinco de Mayo parade. And Ana Laura and Miguel, if you're listening, we loved your mother very much. And I hope that you get a chance to come see this exhibit, and I think you will really like it. So let's talk about that other part of the local component,
Sure.
which Jonathan and the staff asked me to be a part of. And what I had initially thought of was, okay, well, we're going to do the ofrendas and all. But I started telling the story about how in 2007, I went to Guanacario, Michoacan, which is where my great grandmother was from, the Familia Diaz. And we happened to go there because an uncle of mine on my father's side got sick, and we thought he was going to pass. He was 99 years old, and he didn't. He survived. He lived to be 105. But it happened to be during Dia de los Muertos. And I was just so shocked at how the local community there celebrated Dia de los Muertos. I mean, I always had heard about it, and we participate locally, but they have like huge exhibits and ofrendas in their local government buildings. It's more than just in the homes. It's actually throughout the whole city, in Morelia, the city of Morelia, Michoacan, in the cathedral. I mean, just beautiful displays. And they even have huge parades, where they have people dressed up in the calavera faces. And it's just a wonderful celebration throughout Mexico, because I had some friends, they took me to Janitzio, which is an island near Pátzcuaro, where they do the old viejito dance, the dance of the old men. And I'm telling you, I had a wonderful time, a great celebration, a big party scene. But they also have, the respect in the cemeteries, where they give homage to those spirits, and they invite them to come to, during this celebration, and for everybody to celebrate. And it's a celebration of life. And so I took these beautiful pictures.
And they really are gorgeous, by the way. I mean, you did a fabulous job, man. I mean, honestly, when we saw the photographs you took, we're like, some of these we feel like are as good or as better than the ones that are actually in the professional exhibit from the Field Museum.
Oh, so. Thank you so much. I had my 35 millimeter camera. I don't carry that around anymore, because we have our phones nowadays. Sure. And the quality's so good. But I was just so in love with what they presented in Morelia, Michoacan, and Guanacario, where my great grandmother was from, and even Guanajuato. Just beautiful, beautiful pictures. And that's what you will see as part of this exhibit. that they've allowed me to incorporate as the local component. And so it's really a beautiful exhibit, local component added to what they sent from Chicago. So we really want to invite everybody to come on in and view that. And we're going to talk a little bit more with Jonathan Webb as we go into commercial here, but we're going to talk more about the celebration of souls.
This is Mi Gente on Air on WSGW.
Thank you so much, those of you who are in the Facebook live stream. And we want to give a shout out to Ana Sanchez. She's on this. She says, thanks again for the opportunity. And it was an honor to build an altar to share with the community.
Thank you so much, Ana. For helping.
You. And, Ana is always a perfectionist and has always, when I ask her certain things or I want to know about history or whatever, her mother was queen of the Union Civica in 1956. So that, we always talk history, And so when I asked her about this to participate, right away, what time, and, where do I do this? And, questions, and I said, Ana, I'll meet you over at the Castle Museum and, we'll go from there basically. And that's where you saw us and we met, and she had all this stuff, and her brother Juanito was helping her. And so it turned out really beautiful. You did a really nice job, Ana. And I thank you for that. So we're going to go back into the show here and talk a little bit more. And if anybody's got questions or concerns, we will talk about that. And we're going to talk a little bit more about the exhibit, and then we're going to also invite another guest to come in and talk to us in the latter part of the show. Okay, so don't go anywhere, and welcome to Mi Gente on Air again.
You're listening to Mi Gente on Air on WSGW.
Welcome back, Mi Gente. Thank you for being with me tonight here on Mi Gente on Air on WSGW 100.5 FM and 790 AM. And we're here with the president and CEO of the Castle Museum, Jonathan Webb. And we're talking about the exhibit that they have there, A Celebration of Souls. And I want Jonathan to talk a little bit more about the actual Castle Museum and the other exhibits that there are housed there, because I'm telling you, if you haven't been to the castle in a long time, you got to go. There's some great things happening, and I see changes all the time, and I love the staff there, and they do such a great job. So tell us a little bit more about the actual Castle Museum, Jonathan.
Sure. Well, thank you again for having me on the show here tonight and giving me an opportunity to talk about this museum that is so wonderful that's right here in Saginaw. We have some really incredible exhibits in place right now. I would say we sort of have several different categories of exhibits. We have what I would call our permanent exhibits, and those tend to stay for several years at a time, potentially with updates along the way, whether it's through technology or just spiffing them up a little bit. Then we have temporary exhibits that we create ourselves, and a lot of times those come and are based around items that are in our collection. Okay, so things that we have at the museum ourselves that have been donated to us over time. And then, of course, we have these traveling exhibits. So, I would say some of the new exhibits that we're really excited about, I'm sure you're aware, we just had Jazz on Jefferson. Really great. What a wonderful turnout. Super great to have that back and to be live and in person with Jazz on Jefferson. And it was extremely successful despite a little bit of rain at the end of the night. But kind of getting ready for that, this summer we installed two new exhibits. The New Reformation Jazz Band, who was supposed to be the headliner at Jazz on Jefferson a couple years ago when it first got canceled by COVID, we have a temporary exhibit about them. And then right next door to that, actually, it's kind of a jazz back-to-back when you're first coming in the museum. We have an exhibit about Sonny Stitt, who was a legendary jazz musician from here in Saginaw. We have a new exhibit featuring some textiles from our collection, which we don't get an opportunity to get out very often in front of people's eyes. And then we have a really interesting item that was donated to us recently by a family, which is a beautifully done reproduction in wood on a miniature scale of the carousel that's at the zoo. And I mean, and it's incredibly detailed. Everything is there. All the different characters and animals that you see on that carousel down at the zoo are represented here. Beautifully done. It actually operates. It spins. It lights up. It's really amazing.
Well, you know what I want to mention though, the permanent exhibit that you have of like some of the actual stores that were downtown Saginaw.
Oh, sure.
And I think people who come to the castle for the first time, they're going to be like really, you know, surprised to see some of those, like the Michigan Dairy and
Sure.
Winkelman's, and I'm only saying that to the benefit of, you know, I have family members who are coming in for a family reunion, and I think it would be wonderful. And I think that when they see that, they're going to be really surprised at that. But go ahead and continue.
Yeah, and well, that's actually that's the part of the museum that's called People Make the City, and we just recently installed a video screen at the end of that street. So when you're standing there, it appears you're looking down an old street with Saginaw bricks, and you've got stores on both sides of the street. Some of the names you recognize a little bit more, like Morley Brothers, and then, you know, down at the end of the street, we have the Goodrich Brothers Photography Studio, and just little interesting things to look at along the way. But then we have this video screen at the end of that hallway with some very, very old film footage of Saginaw, some of it taken right near the Castle Museum, which is just really fun to watch that. So you kind of feel like you're actually on a street with people moving, and
I love that.
Pretty neat. And then downstairs in the lower level, we have completely redone a large part of that lower level in the last few years. First with our lumbering exhibit, which we completely built in-house and we're very, very proud of. We felt that was an extremely important story to the early financial development, if you will, of this area. It was really what first brought money to this area, was the lumbering industry. And it kind of established Saginaw as the leading city in this area. And so we felt that story wasn't told properly. And so we put a lot of time and effort into doing a brand new lumbering exhibit. And then most recently, we did an exhibit called Our Foundations, and that was in 2019. And that was commemorating the 200th anniversary of the signing of the Treaty of Saginaw. And I say commemorating instead of celebrating because that was actually a really important part of that story that we wanted to make sure we told, because depending on which side of that negotiation you were on, it had a very different viewpoint, right? Yeah. And so we actually went to our friends in Mount Pleasant at the Saginaw Band of Chippewa Indians and asked them if they would help us put this together. And so those, some of the Anishinaabe elders came, advised us on everything from the dress and fabric of the Anishinaabe characters to the how to build the entrance to the Wegawa, the hut with the birch bark on the outside, and just really, they recorded some audio for us. We had a part where we wanted to read a speech that was read at the negotiation of the Treaty of Saginaw, and so we just, we wanted to make sure that we told that story in a thoughtful and proper way. And so again, with collaboration with those folks, I think we did a very nice job with that, and I hope people will take a chance to come and look at that. You mentioned earlier the Saginaw County Sports Hall of Fame. I know that's a completely different thing than what I've been talking about, but again, it's an organization that we collaborate with. It's a whole different kind of history. They've been wonderful partners. They have their own small section of the museum that we gave them. They paid to renovate it. They curate all the exhibits in there. Then we man the door so that they don't have to have a person there all the time. And again, just a really great collaboration because it brings in a whole different audience that wouldn't typically maybe come to just a straight up history museum, but they're very interested in sports. So, at every different level on the top floor, I'll just talk about one more, and then I know we got to move on here, but we just finished Made in Saginaw. So that was a whole new renovation of the top level of the museum, where it's focusing on items that were uniquely made in the city of Saginaw. Okay, so we try to keep the museum county-wide for the most part, but this one is definitely focused on the city of Saginaw and things that were uniquely made here in the city of Saginaw. And so we just finished that, and Jeff Pelkey, who's our exhibits coordinator, he's a fine art guy by trade. And I just told him, I said, you know what? I feel like don't box yourself in. Don't get stuck in the we want to photograph an artifact and some text panel and a text panel below it. Use your artistic abilities. Make this visually appealing to people. And if you go upstairs to that top floor, the second you get to the top of the stairs, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about when you see it.
Wow.
So, and that kind of leads me into just real quickly, mentioning none of this can happen. I don't do all this stuff on my own by any means. We have a very well-trained professional staff, starting with Tom Trombley, who is our vice president and chief historian, and probably the most knowledgeable individual you're ever going to talk to about Saginaw County history. We have Sandy Schwann and Jeff Cottrell working in our collections department. So we've got hundreds of thousands of items in our collection that we store across the street in that former department store, and that is a huge part of what we do is making sure those things are taken care of and properly stored and cataloged and kept for people to use for reference materials or for exhibits or whatever the case might be. Jeff Sommer is our resident archaeologist, and he's going to be out in the field all summer, doing digs at archaeological sites that we feel. One of them that he's working on this summer is related to the lumbering industry. We feel we may have located the site of a potential, like a boarding house that would have been used by the lumbermen when they were out in the field. We just added a couple of people to our staff, Dr. Jen Vanette and Erica Massey. And Jen is our outreach coordinator. And so she is handling everything programming wise that's happening in the museum, things that are happening out in the community. She has brought a whole fresh look. She's an expert on diversity, equity, inclusion. And so she's really been helpful in that. Erica is our social media specialist and website, and she has gotten us out in front of people that we've never been in front of before and has done a fantastic job. Our education coordinator is Christy Furtaw, and she is working her butt off. She was so busy here recently in the spring as school was winding down, and I'm sure she's going to take a deep breath here over the summer for a little bit, but she's already got programs going on with younger kids over the summer. And then we have people, that are taking care of the building on a daily basis. Barb and Wayne do a fantastic job, and that's why it looks so wonderful whenever you come down there. And of course, we have the people that are working at our front desk that, on a daily basis, they're the face that you meet when you come in the door, and they get you started on your tour. So,
well, thank you so much for all that information. Just give us a quick, what are the times when the museum is open?
Sure. So we're open Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday from 10 to 4:30. Sunday it's only 1 to 4:30, and then Thursday night we stay open late. Okay, so we're open from 10 o'clock to 7 o'clock on Thursday, and we have some really cool programs planned for some of these evenings when we're staying open. We have a couple different things we're doing. One of them we call History After Hours, which is similar to our Lunch and Learn, but we bring in somebody to give a talk about something of historical import. This month we have Scott Ellis, who's is going to be there from Great Lakes Bay Pride and talk about that organization and its history in our community. In July, we have one of our other board members, Dr. Amy French from Delta College, and she's going to talk about, she loves to do talk about women in history, and so she's going to be talking about women bartenders in history. And if you know Amy, which you do, that's going to be really fascinating and interesting, I am quite certain. And then we've been doing these things that we just call museum mingles, where we just bring in music. There's no additional programming happening, but we just bring in music on a Thursday night so that you can hear that as you walk around. And the acoustics in that place are gorgeous. So on July 7th, we have a Saginaw Bay Symphony Museum pop-up concert, so that's going to be super cool. And then just on some of the Friday nights, and I know there's a particular Friday night live that involves Latino music, and so that night we're going to stay open an extra hour, and that way people can come down and do a tour of the museum and see the exhibit about Celebration of Souls, and then make their way down to the Friday night fun at 5:30. So
wow, so much going on in our beautiful Castle Museum of Saginaw County. And I'm telling you, I'm a big promoter of it. I love it. I've loved the history that it represents, and I love what the staff has done. So thank you so much, Jonathan Webb.
Thank you for having me
being
again,
with me here tonight on Mi Gente on Air. And we're going to talk with somebody else who is a big promoter of some of the arts in Saginaw. And Jonathan, you can stay with us here, but we're going to talk with her via a link to Janet Martineau. Janet, are you with us? Are you with
I
us?
am here.
Oh, thank you so much. And the
Yep.
reason I invited Janet on the show tonight was because Janet nominated me, believe it or not, for the Saginaw Area Arts Award that happened last Thursday at the Saginaw Art Museum. And I got to text Janet and I said, Janet, I won. And she was there that night. And I want Janet to tell us a little bit about that organization and why did you nominate me?
Why did I nominate you? Do we have an hour?
No, we don't. We have only 10 minutes.
Anyway, it's called the Saginaw All Area Arts Awards, sponsored by the Saginaw Arts and Enrichment Commission. This is its 32nd year. I sort of did a quick count, and we've probably made about 100, close to 100 people have received those awards over that span of time. They have to be born in Saginaw or had their career in Saginaw. And it's artists and artist groups and community arts organizations and educators. And I nominated you people. You need to read why. It's this long. Okay. You have done so much for the community, from your magazine to this broadcast to the La Civica Union. You name it, you've done it. Okay. It was long overdue.
Thank you so much, Janet. It really was a surprise to me. Part of the process is that when you're nominated, they interview you and you have to kind of more or less say what your contributions have been. So
Right.
it started back 27 years ago with Mi Gente magazine. And Janet and I, believe it or not, we met at the Saginaw News.
Right.
She was a reporter for the Saginaw News for the arts and entertainment, and I was there as an intern. Do you remember that? Back in
Yeah.
1996, I want to say.
Okay.
And it really was when the Saginaw News was a newsroom, when it was thriving. I mean,
Yeah.
and there was probably how many reporters at that time?
30 anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. And it just was a blast, and I learned so much. And Janet was there way back then, and so I was really surprised when she said to me, "I want to nominate you for the All Area Arts Award." And I said, "Really?" And so she
We
asked
talked
me,
on the phone for an hour.
yeah. I was there at the Union Civica trying to make patitos, and I stepped out into my car and I was answering her questions. And so then, as we were getting closer to the day, the invite, which was last Thursday at the Saginaw Art Museum, I was really surprised. I was really taken because out of 12 nominees, I didn't think I, really had a chance. I think, when you're dealing with the arts, you think of somebody who's actually doing murals or paintings or what have you. But I guess by, promoting through this Mi Gente on Air, we've done, shows on the Ballet Folklorica.
Oh, yeah.
And
You've
we
interviewed Carlos Santana. You interviewed, what's her name? Sandra Cisneros. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so I was really surprised, like I said, and I would have thought, okay, well, maybe somebody would have given me a hint or something. I really had no idea, and so I'm sitting there on the end, with the rest of the nominees, and the announcer, the MC, she says, and this individual started a magazine, and I'm like, oh my God, you're kidding me.
God.
Actually won. I won this, and so I went up there and I gave my acceptance speech, and I did mention that, I didn't even invite my family because I didn't think I was going to win, but thank God I did invite members of the Union Civica Mexicana who have been so instrumental in my career as well. And so, we talked about the idea that, during this time we're living in really difficult times, for myself, I've looked to the arts to help me get through it, and here I'm a big promoter of Saginaw, of course,
Yep.
and we've got some really good things going on, from the Castle Museum,
Oh, it's
all
an
that they're
incredible.
doing there. Yeah.
I
And
heard
so,
John mention earlier that people were crying because of something that happened. When I nominate somebody and they win, you didn't see me sitting I'm bawling my head off, and people are saying, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No,
yeah.
I'm just so darn happy."
But I want to mention, Ana Sanchez is on here tonight, and she is the one that put up the ofrenda for the Dia de los Muertos exhibit at the castle. And she says, "Thanks again for the opportunity, and it was an honor to build an altar to share with the community." And John Estrada, he's saying, thank you for remembering today is Flag Day. Nice background. So that's a kudos to you, Jonathan Dent, my producer over there. But Janet, what would you say, was can you tell us a little bit about that night at the, because they have this event at different locations. It's been at the
Actually, it's always been at the Dow, but now we went to, we're still being cautious with COVID, and we're finding the art museum's a beautiful place to have it. If it's
Yeah.
a nice night, it rained, we can have part of it outside. And I was just, I want people to realize this is any old award. One year, Brian James got it, who is a Tony nominated actor from Saginaw. He was in an Oscar-winning movie and just had a TV series. And Marshall M. Fredericks, who is a world-renowned sculptor and has a museum at S3SU. I mean, this has gone over the years to some really big names. So, see, you're among those people.
Wow, thank you for mentioning that. And I want to mention that one of our board members from the Castle Museum also received the awards, the All Area Arts Award. It was Ricardo Verdoni. He received it in what, 2018 maybe? Or
2018 or 19. Yep.
Yeah. So you're in good company, John.
I see that. Surround myself with
so there's usually 11 and I should say that the nominees come from the community, and then a board within the Arts and Enrichment makes the selections, and we get up to sometimes 17 nominees. This year was a bumper crop. You should have all won, but I'm glad who won did win.
Okay. Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. I mean, the incredible things that people are doing in our community sometimes gets overlooked, And I really felt that to be nominated was an honor just to get that nomination, and to actually win it. I was really taken it, and I want to give credit to WSGW for that as well, because and I was mentioning to John earlier that I think with my work with Mi Gente magazine, it's targeted towards the Latino community, of course, but I think as we have broadened the audience with Mi Gente on Air in these last 2 years with this show, I think more people are hearing about some of the arts and the contributions of Latinos in our community, and so I think that's part of the reason why this commissioner board, actually selected me, because, I don't know too many of them on there. I think Sonia Lopez, she's a friend of mine, and she was the only one from the Latino community that was on there. And
well, besides the word is out, you make great potatoes, right?
Oh man, yeah, and you know what? That's the culinary arts, right? The culinary arts every Thursday and Friday we're over there, and sometimes even the staff over at the Castle Museum gets the patitos.
Those are the best.
Yeah. And it's so important. I want people to know that those patitos are really what kept the Union Civica Mexicana going during this pandemic. We didn't, during the pandemic, everything stopped. All the rentals, all the signature events that we had, from Cinco de Mayo to the Tamale Taste Off. And so I said, how can we, raise money? How can we raise funds? And it was the patito that really, saved the Union Civica Mexicana. So
how many do you make you serve 2 days? How many do you tend to make in those 2 days?
Probably about 250.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's 250 dinners. So if you take two,
right.
you're looking at actually rolling out 500 patitos, and it's work. It's work, but we got it pretty much down to a T, and we're still making them homemade. We're actually rolling out the masa. Mm-hmm. There's no machines, and so
you've been the director there since when was it?
2008.
Okay, got it.
And that's when we again we were looking at, well, how do we save the Union Civica Mexicana, because the president at the time said she needed help, and I said, okay, how do we raise money? And that's when I came up with the idea of the Dia de los Muertos brunch, because I just gotten back from Mexico, seeing what the celebration entailed from the city, the actual city. And I said, I think I know how we can raise some money. And we had this brunch where people, if you're gonna have an event, you got to include food, and then guaranteed that it's going to be a success. But I said, we'll make some caldos, we'll do pozole or menudo, and patitos, what have you, and then we'll do this exhibit of these ofrendas. And it went from a small celebration to, just before COVID, we bought the Ballet Folklorico de Detroit coming in, and we had over 350 people full house at the Union Civica. So I mean, it's really,
And I should also throw in there, like I said, we could go on about you, but you at the La Union, you started the Adelante Awards, which honor living artists, and then the Hall of Fame, which is like
yes, the
10
Saginaw
people. I
Hispanic,
think you've had 10 people so far, people who in the past. Yep.
yes, the Saginaw Hispanic Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry.
what Janet's referring to is the Adelante Awards that prior to the pandemic, we were celebrating the 10th annual, I think was the last one in 2019, where we honor people in 5 different categories throughout the community. And from culture to education to legacy and business, and hopefully we're going to bring that back as well this year.
Yep.
And it's just bringing that awareness and the contribution of the Latino community to a greater audience, and I think that's what has been my career goal, even when I didn't even realize it was. When I started Mi Gente, I started Mi Gente because Selena, the Tejano singer, passed away, and I wanted people to know about her because the secular media wasn't given the accurate information about her at the time. And look at what a phenomenon she has become, over these last 27 years. But I want to thank Janet for, again, if I didn't thank you so much for that nomination.
No problem.
And it really touched my heart, and it was kind of really neat to not know that I was going to win, and it was a complete surprise because I really didn't think I would win that award. So
we were terrified we couldn't get him to make a reservation. We thought, what do we do if we do?
But if I did come, no, I plan on going. You know what? I was just so busy with so many things going on that I didn't even get to make the phone call. But thank you again, Janet Martineau, so much for being with me here today. And thank you, Jonathan Webb, President CEO of the Castle Museum. We got some great things happening in the city of Saginaw, and I'm so happy to be a part of all of it. And I want to encourage everybody to come out and look at that museum, Dia de los Muertos, the celebration of souls, Fiesta de las Almas. So thank you again, both of you, for joining me here on Mi Gente on Air.
Thank you, Larry.
Thank you.
And thank you to the audience for joining me on the live stream. And I'll see you next week here on Mi Gente on Air. As always, celebrating Latino culture, contributions, and concerns. We'll see you next week. Hasta luego, everybody. And thank you so much, those of you who joined us in the room. We have Nancy Rodarty Rodriguez, my sister. She says, awesome. And I had to apologize to my sister because she didn't even know about the award. And so I did let her know afterwards. But yeah, busted. And then William Flores, who always joins us every week, he says, awesome, Larry. So thank you for those comments. And Johnny Estrada, thank you for being with us tonight. And of course, Ana Sanchez and Celeste Ibarra, thank you for being in the audience in the live stream. And I hope that if you can share this, because you can share the actual live stream and, bring that awareness to other people within your friends on Facebook. And my big thing is we've got such a beautiful Castle Museum there, and I want to invite you back, John, for a future show to talk more about it, because we were kind of really rushed tonight, but I think it made it really interesting for the program. And of course, Janet Martineau, we're going to talk again probably about some great events coming up, because this is the time when I've said we've come a long way, and I'm talking about the fact that here in our institutions, the Great Lakes Bay regions, from the Marshall Fredericks Sculpting Museum and what they did with Sandra Cisneros, to the Castle Museum and what they're doing with Dia de los Muertos. And the other one was the Loons. They're doing that great night what we had the show last week. So I mean, something's happening. Is it the water we're drinking in the Great Lakes or what? But it's just a wonderful time, and I love seeing this celebration of Latino culture. And I hope everybody will continue to support and join us here on Mi Gente on Air, because we're going to talk about that all summer long. All right. So thank you again, everyone. Thank you for being with me, and we'll see you next week. Hasta luego.